Thanks everyone for sticking around. My name's Chris Coleman. I've been living in Shanghai since 2011, working in the animation industry in various capacities, involving animation education, high-end training for the industry, organising events, creative networking events, showcasing work for the animation and game community, and also writing about the industry, the animation, film, and advertising industries in Shanghai and in China. So this session we're going to be talking about animation. Chinese animation's had a sort of an interesting journey over the years. It was had its sort of golden age, if you like, in the late 40s and 50s and early 60s. And then since the early 90s, it sort of had it's when it started to develop this kind of slightly undesirable reputation as an outsourcing country. China was as a manufacturing, it manufactured animation. It was, animation sweatshops. At least this was the reputation from outside looking in. And the domestic audience kind of saw homegrown animation as low quality or just for kids. And it really wasn't appealing to the local audience or to the global audience. But that's really started to change in the last few years. There's been a really big shift, a huge amount of growth, investment, and then we're seeing more and more co-production deals being struck. And that's with private companies and with government, co-production treaties with different nations. And even some big hits at the box office from Chinese companies. So there's lots of different aspects to discuss. We have a really diverse panel here to discuss the different issues. So let's meet them. We've got Mark Benson, who's the CEO of MPC, or the Moving Picture Company. Mark joined MPC 30 years ago as a runner, and he's worked his way up to global CEO, overseeing the company's 9 global offices. MPC is part of the Technicolor Group. And Technicolor, I'm sure you're familiar with the company. They have a presence in China for a number of years. And MPC opened their first office in China at the beginning of 2015. So MPC creates visual imagery, visual effects for advertising some of the biggest biggest movies of the last 20 years, including Harry Potter, recently Fantastic Beasts, and recently 85% of the work on the CG version of The Jungle Book. And next to Mark, we have Penny Finkelman-Cox, along with her long-term producing partner, Sandra Rabins. She's the co-president of Original Force Animation, which is one of China's most prominent and successful digital animation studios. She and Sandra Rabins are one of the most accomplished production and executive teams in the industry. She began her animation career at DreamWorks, and then she and Sandra Rabins started Sony Pictures Animation, and then throughout a distinguished career, she and Rabins have overseen animated classics including Shrek, Prince of Egypt, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Open Season, and Surf's Up. And then finally, we have Zhou Guangming, who is the Deputy Director of the Animation Comic Game China Group, or ACG. China ACG was founded in 2009, and it's a state-sponsored enterprise which operates with the mission of serving the animation, comic, and game industry and popularizing ACG culture in China. So thank you, everyone, for joining me. I'd like to ask and invite each of the panelists to first just introduce themselves and their company and what they do in China. So if we start with you, Mark.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. You very kindly covered the world of MPC, and specifically with regard to China, we have a studio in Shanghai, MPC Shanghai, where we focus on primarily advertising activities. And advertising and communications, of course, these days is a lot more than just television. It's VR, it's AR, it's experiential and interactive activities. And we found, in particular, given our global perspective on this side of our activity, the innovation and the opportunity to do really innovative and exciting applications and innovations in Shanghai specifically has been very prevalent. And so we're very excited about the opportunity in that part of the world. And of course, animation plays such an enormous part of the opportunities in this space, in whatever medium we choose to deliver the content that we create. So, and just to add, because I think it's enormously relevant, NPC is a part of Technicolor, as you rightly say, Chris. And of course, within Technicolor, there are a number of animation companies. In Bangalore specifically, we have a unit working with DreamWorks very specifically. Micros Image are a Technicolor company currently working on Sherlock Gnomes, the follow-up to Romeo and Juliet. And Asterix and Obelix is one of their titles as well. So there's enormous ambition within Technicolor to grow and develop in the world of animation. And certainly Shanghai is an opportunity for us, and it's a starting point. And I think that it represents, being in China is key to what we do next. And that's where we are at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Penny?
Well, one of the things that distinguishes Original Force US is that we are not a co-production. We are completely and wholly owned and financed by China, which I think makes us a very distinctive company. We partnered with Harley Chow with the ambition of developing IP, always the key word, intellectual property, that will be owned and exploited by Original Force, not just in China and not just in the US, but all around the world, to make a global films for the international marketplace, but that will be Chinese in identification. And that doesn't mean Chinese content, although we have lots of Chinese content. But it's still, the goal is to make animated movies which are global in their appeal. So we're hoping that our movies will be as appealing to US and China as it will be to France, as it will be to Brazil, as it will be to Mexico, as to any of the standard marketplaces that are very supportive of animation.
Okay, thanks, Penny. And then Guangming, can you just introduce what you do?
Uh, 谢谢主持人，谢谢大家。中国动漫集团是由国家财政部出资，文化部主管的一家动漫央企。因为作为一个国家的出资的企业，中国动漫集团以这个发展动漫产业、普及动漫文化为自己集团的宗旨，承担了一些这个公益型、平台型，这样的一些职能，比如我们集团每年在北京举办的中国国际网络文化博览会，以及还有在12月份马上要举办的网络文化产业年会、中国动漫卡通形象营销大会等这样一些活动，就是要搭建一些平台，来为中国的动漫企业来服务、来对接。同时呢，也承担一些培训、培养这个动漫人才，推动中国的动漫品牌走出去，进行国际交流。主要是承担的这样的一些服务的职能。谢谢。
Okay, thank you, Guangming. So if we can just start, animation, like so many things in China, has sort of changed so rapidly in recent years. I wonder if I can start with you, Guangming, just asking you, how has the government kind of promoted and encouraged the growth and improvement of Chinese animation in terms of their investments and in the different areas, and what are the opportunity areas for maybe foreign content creators who may want to work with China?
好的。实际现在中国的动漫游戏市场是一个前景非常广阔、市场需求非常大的这样一个市场。从这几年的数字就可以看出来。你像动画片儿，近几年。中国的国产动画片，都是连续在增长的。这个2013年的时候， 每年上映的动画片是29部，14年的时候是30部，到今年呢能达到50部，所以这个市场是在快速的发展的。我们的这个动画电视片呢也是这样的，在2011年的时候，年产量就已经达到了20多万分钟，远远超过了排在第2名的日本，它是9万分钟。但是这几年呢，我们调整了这个从注重数量向提升质量方面来发展，有一定的回落，但是可以看出来，就是中国的这个动画影视市场是非常巨大的，所以我觉得是这样的，不管在任何一个题材、任何一个领域，只要是你的作品好，是一个好的内容、好的制作，在中国都会有巨大的市场和观众人群的。谢谢。
Okay, so yeah, we can see China's obviously a huge opportunity. Mark, when you went into China initially, what was it that kind of first drew you to the market? And you know, what have you found since you've been there? What have you learned since you've been there, compared to what you thought going in?
Yeah, I think we've learned an enormous amount, but I think probably no surprise that the expectations in China are no different to the expectations as we see them here in the US or in the UK or wherever we work. We operate in a truly global marketplace where expectations are consistent. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think what we've seen, certainly across the advertising and communications piece, is a real bravery for doing innovative work. And that's very exciting to us. It's very exciting for our creatives. It's very exciting for our talent. And I think that's a bedrock for the activity moving forwards. And I think, as always, the best work is a function of working with the best talent. And we work very closely, as we do with all of our studios across MPC, at being able to share talent and to nurture talent across the different businesses. And I think we've seen that's had particularly strong effect in Shanghai in terms of the quality of work we do and more of it.
Mm-hmm. And you work in advertising as opposed to movies in China, that's right?
At this point, that's right, yes, that's right. But there's enormous ambition. I mean, as Penny just mentioned, the IP word, this is something that we're all very excited about. And I think everyone here is equally engaged in the opportunities around great ideas, great storytelling. And I think across our business, our abilities around creating great content, I work on Jungle Book we were enormously proud of. That's in the photoreal animated world, in the stylistic animation world as well. I think we have expertise along with so many different businesses, and I think it's about identifying those opportunities and working to achieve them. And that's certainly the ambition for the group of companies that I work with.
Okay, thank you. Penny, so can you just talk us through when you first kind of identified China as a place you'd like to personally work with, and then how those sort of early conversations went with Original Force? Was it a sort of a love at first sight, or?
Well, Sandy Rabins, my partner, had been working with Original Force because she was the executive producer on How to Train Your Dragons, the TV show. And she asked me to come to dinner one night with Harley and one of his partners, Kevin, and talk about what they wanted to do, because they were a service company and a gaming company, but when you do that for a certain amount of time, you develop the urge to own what you make. And so we cooked it up over dinner. It wasn't about China, it was about Harley. Not that China was a negative or a positive, but Harley was so enthusiastic, so seductive, convincing that we could put a plan together to make our own IP, to make family animated movies. And one of the elements of animated family films is their evergreen property. If you make a good one, it's timeless. It never gets old, it never goes out of fashion. These movies are good for my generations and the generations after me, And that's why they're so profitable, really, because they never get old or they never fall out of fashion. It's not like a lot of movies that are have to be very current and very edgy. These are things that address and focus on very universal themes and universal emotional content and characters that audiences will remember, which is so interesting when you talk about Jungle Book, because Jungle Book, the animated movie, and then the same story really, but done fantastically different, both of them have a place in viewers of all ages. So the idea of doing this with Harley and then getting to know China, because we hadn't really thought, I hadn't thought about it before, getting to know China, going to China, finding and getting to know the talent there, and the point of view, which is we all want to get together and put on a show, and it doesn't matter what language we speak or where we live. So it grew in excitement as we realized what going to China, what working with China was going to provide for us. So.
And is there, in China now, there's almost this sort of blank slate in that China doesn't have a Pixar or a Disney or a DreamWorks.
Oh, but it has an original force.
There's Original Force. So yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yes.
I mean, there's not that sort of standout brand. Original Force has a very good reputation, but it's not known throughout China like Disney is throughout America and the world. Is building that brand sort of part of your thinking, and how are you sort of going about trying to do that? Is that in your thoughts?
I think when you build a Disney or even a DreamWorks, which is 20 years old, time is very significant. You can't just start by saying you're going to build a brand. You have to start by saying, I'm going to make a good movie, and I'm going to make a second good movie, and then I'm going to look at that first good movie and see what other things it can become. I don't think we're thinking build a brand, we're thinking make good movies. It's just the future is too vague for us to want to do more than just make good movies. And quite honestly, there are people who build their brands, but I think we're just thinking about making the movies that we care about and that we share that commitment with others.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about co-production. Guangming, if I could turn to you first. I'd just like if you could just tell us if there's any difference between what a film needs to include to be classified as a co-production in animation, and is that different to a live-action movie? And how does the government sort of help these co-productions to take place? Because we're seeing more and more of them with Alpha recently and Original Force, and we've had Millie Pictures in the past. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
因为在中国对电影的这块政策的管理呢，是由我们国家广电新闻出版总局来负责的。具体的对政策的解释呢，我不是很清楚。但是我认为就是现在这个电影市场这个种类和形式都是非常丰富的，它的这种合作的模式也是有很多，这种股份的股权的这种投资啊，还是这种直接这种成立合资的公司啊，就是这种模式这种渠道。有很多种，都可以达到来，对于一个好的题材来共同来制作、来完成、来发行，这个我想它的解决的渠道是多种多样的。
Okay, thank you. So Penny, I mean, I know you said earlier that this isn't actually a co-production, what you're doing with Original Force.
No.
This is just a Chinese production.
Right.
China's, in the past, as I mentioned earlier, had a kind of a bit of a bad reputation in the West in terms of animation. It's been a little bit hard to decipher, to truly understand what's going on over there. Communication's been limited. events like this are great to build that communication, but still there's a limited number of Chinese people here. There's a limited number of Americans who go to China and really engage with the market there. How did you go about kind of building that trust over time, and when did you really decide to sort of make the plunge and work with Original Force?
It was quite quick. I mean, we decided to do it, and then we went to China to really get to know a little bit more about taste and leanings and to come to understand what the marketplace was there. But there was a certain assumption that we have, which is family movies are relatable no matter what the country. Family values are relatable. And certainly in China, there's a very strong loyalty to family and caring about your immediate family and your bigger family. So it wasn't a difficult decision, but the learning process was fascinating for us because we didn't know the culture that well. We really had not asked many questions. I mean, Sandy had done more research on outsourcing, and so we knew more about the world than that. But once we started zeroing in, we went to Nanjing, and we went to Beijing, which Original Force head office, and we went to Shanghai to really kind of ask the people, the talent that worked there, what kind of movies they like, what they wanted to see, and what they wanted to be doing. And we wanted also, since they'd never done a feature pipeline, we wanted to get their enthusiasm, we wanted to build their enthusiasm so that they could hang in. Animation, feature animation is a long run. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a very long 18-month process of production. That doesn't even count story development. So we needed to build our relationship with them from the ground up.
Mark, how did you prepare to go into China? Did you seek advice? What kind of foundations did you lay before you moved in?
Well, we had the opportunity to work with the Shanghai Film Group, who are partners with Technicolor and MPC in our activities in Shanghai. So that was the basis for the opportunity. And I think what we understood very quickly was, of course, the need to, one, understand the talent requirements and where we wanted to nurture new talent and bring new talent and new expertise into the studio, but also be sure that the technology enabled us to do what we do with our other studios, which is to be connected. And that took time and that took energy, and it took some very clever people around technology to make that happen. But it has enabled us to operate in Shanghai as we do in Los Angeles or London or New York, or indeed Montreal or Vancouver, where we are sharing capacity. We have a pipeline that enables us to share work and enables us to do an awful lot of work in increasingly short amounts of time. And that is, whether it's feature films or advertising, those pressures are every day. And we thrive on them because the capacity enables us to do that. And so understanding how to navigate that technology piece so that we could connect as we do around the rest of the world was challenging. But we're at a point now where that's happening on a regular basis, and the work we do locally is shared across our network, as I've mentioned.
Okay, well that brings us on quite nicely to this issue of talent. Just like to ask everybody on the panel, what do you feel and what do you observe? Where does the Chinese animation talent excel, and where are the gaps, where are the weaknesses, and how are you in your role, your different roles, addressing those gaps going forward? Start with you, Guangming.
您再说一遍。
So yeah, really just asking about talent in China, and with ACG you're very involved with lots of different companies, so you must see where these companies struggle in terms of talent, and where are the strengths in terms of the domestic Chinese talent.
因为中国的动漫市场相比较这个美国呀、日本啊、韩国啊，属于发展比较晚的，所以不管在这个各方面的人才储备、培训和目前的成长， 都还处于一个这个等于是上升发展的阶段。所以而目前呢，中国这个市场呢，电影的市场，还有动漫游戏的市场，又是处在一个快速发展的这样一个阶段。这样呢就造成了我们对这个优秀的人才，动漫人才是非常急需的，也是缺少的。近几年呢，中国从这个为了改变这种状况，进行了大量的这种加快人才培养的这样的一些措施，包括在很多高校都开设了这个相关的这种专业，来培养人才。但是中国有一句话叫10年树木，100年树人，所以要培养出来真正的优秀的人才，是需要长期的这种积累和培育的。所以我们也欢迎包括美国在内的世界各国的这种优秀人才到中国去发展、去交流，这样也能促进我们中国的这个动漫人才的成长。同时呢，像我们中国动漫集团也会开展一些这个对外交流的这样的一些工作，包括刚才说到我们举办的这些展会，搭建这样的平台，来促进世界各国的这种相关的企业人才的互相学习、互相交流，也是要加快我们动漫企业、动漫人才的这种快速的成长，学习我们这个美国呀、日本呐、韩国这种发展比较好的国家的这个好的经验、好的做法。谢谢。
Okay. Penny?
That answer was absolutely complete. We're from the other side, we're trying to supply exactly that. And we're not supplying just US talent. We have people coming to China to train the artists at Original Force from all over the world, because talent is not limited to this country. And in animation, it's such a common language. You easily bridge the gap. But we have a commitment to start a pipeline and to bring what we call expats over to Nanjing to work with the talent there to build a very strong pipeline and a strong group of talent. And we hope that, well, we assume that every movie we make will have to supplement less and less because the talent will be growing. In addition, we've tried very hard to look out for schools in China, to encourage the growth of schools, even within Original Force, which has a training program. And that's, I think, where the future is going to be if training starts early and the values that are put on artists and people begin to really accept the fact that being an artist is such a valid way of making a living, which is not necessarily 100% there. So by increasing that recognition of everyone there that being an artist is something, not just a way to make a living, but an exciting way to live your life, that will increase the quantity of people. What's always going to be the challenge there is there's so many companies that competition for talent is very tight right now. And that's, whether it's the big companies like Oriental DreamWorks, and we all know that, and Disney as well, there's a lot of competition for talent. And then the individual companies that arise. So you're always on the lookout for talent, and then the challenge is keep them happy and have them stay with you. Yeah. So building loyalty is also very important for us.
Mm-hmm. Mark, do you want to add anything?
I agree with everything that has been said, and I would just add, if I may, our experience in terms of finding talent and nurturing talent in our studios is such that absolutely one needs to engage with the schools and the colleges and have those direct lines into the next generation of talent. We've also found it appropriate to build our own schools within our business itself. So we have academies in MPC in Bangalore and in Montreal, where we take that control on ourselves. We absolutely engage with the local schools and community and across animation and art and so on, but actually corralling the taking control ourselves and doing that training and nurturing within the business is something we've seen to be very effective. And what's interesting, and I think it's done, I mean, recruiting is a really important part of what we all do. It's key to having people in place and to retaining talent. And what's interesting, if you find the right people, we found within our academies, if we look at, for example, recently, we take 30 artists a year in MPC Bangalore and train and nurture them. The conversion rate to artists last year was 29. So 29 of our academy are now working in the studio. And I think if we invest in the right people, that helps us enormously to continue to grow. And I think this is key to establishing a long-term and viable industry and having the training piece at the heart of that. Should never be, I'm sure it isn't, but underestimated. And I suspect it's always more significant than we'd ever imagine.
It's a really interesting subject. I'd love to talk more about it, but we don't really have time. But just one more question on that subject. You know, Original Force, you have a development studio here in the US, and then production sort of done in China, and then there are a number of other companies who are sort of following a similar model, development here, production there. What does that mean for the US in terms of the animation industry? Is that in decline now in the US? Is this a model that we're going to see?
Oh, no. I think the competition is even higher in the US. And I think the quality coming out of all the major studios and the smaller studios. And what's also interesting is the variations on price points that we're looking at in animation. You know, in the big studios, you're only looking at what's now $150 million movies. We've proved in many ways that you can make a movie for half of that and then half of that again. So you continue to have competition within your price point. But no, I think it just makes animation stronger. I think the appetite for a story well told and beautiful to look at and a lot of fun to sit with will never go away.
I agree.
Okay. So I just want to move on to audience taste in China. We've seen that in recent times, before Hollywood even started sort of investing in China, we've seen a lot of, or a number of successes produced by the Chinese domestic companies. So we had Monster Hunt, which was with a Hong Kong team as well, admittedly. Monkey King, Hero Returns, and you had local IP like 100,000 Bad Jokes from the U17.com, which Alpha has actually now bought. You had Light Chaser produced a film called Door Gods, which was very high production values. And recently we had Big Fish and Begonias, which did very well in the box office. And these are all domestically produced films. So I'm just wondering what lessons, if any, you learned, Penny, from looking at those films, what's already coming out in China and what's successful with the audience in China. Do you look at that and do you take sort of inspiration and lessons from that?
One of the things that we realize is that the value systems that are inherent in the Chinese movies are the same as ours. It's family, it's caring, it's the strength of character and the ability to change and grow, and that's universal. When we look at a lot of the movies that are made for Chinese market that are not geared towards American, the biggest difference we see, and this is a superficial way to put it, but we're very focused on a beginning, middle, and an end, where a lot of the movies that we see out of China are less rigid than we are in terms of their structures. That doesn't make them better or worse, but it's something we feel strongly about, that a movie has to be structurally sound. And so we believe that these movies will be received well in China too, because we know that all the Pixar movies are well received there, the DreamWorks movies, and they have the same kind of structure. The one thing I will say is that Original Force is not interested in quantity. They are going to develop movies for the Chinese market, and that may have more quantity involved, but we're really going to do one movie every year to 18 months because we don't want quantity, we want quality. And quality takes time, and storytelling isn't done just, quickly. Its development process is extensive, it's very time-consuming. And one thing you learn about animation, if you don't get the story right, you should stop and start all over again. You should not. And that's the beauty of the animation process. You do the story, you develop the story before you move into production. So hopefully the movie is tested and refined before you actually go into the production phase, which is the most expensive phase of making animation.
Okay. One thing I'm sort of curious about when I look at the way things are moving now is that we look at sort of the best industries in the world, the best animation in the world, and so the US, say Britain, France, Japan, they all have a sort of really distinctive character to them. They may be telling global stories which can appeal around the world, but they've got that sort of feel to them from the place that they're from, and that sort of enriches them and makes them all the more interesting, I think. With the way things are going now and sort of this potential Hollywood influence, if you like, is there a danger that China will kind of not develop that voice of its own? And how can we preserve that? And is that in your thinking? If we could ask you first, Guangming, about that.
好的。我觉得不管是中国的动画片，还是好莱坞的动画片，还是这个德国的动画片，所要追求的这个反映的这种价值观，比如说真善美，正义，这个勇敢，爱国，这个我想可能对于任何一个国家来说，它都是要表达的主题，但是我们现在一部片子它要走出自己的国家，进行全球的发行，现在是要做一些适当的改变，但是这个改变呢，不是改变它的这个精髓，这个核心，而是改变了一种表达的方式，因为人们的这个每个国家有自己的这种表达的习惯，这种表达的方式，所以它更多的是从这个形式上、手段上来进行改变，但是对于它所要表达的这种核心的价值观是不会改变的，所以中国的动画片呢，也是这样的，它在进行全球发行的时候，我们一直在提倡，就是要讲好中国故事，这个讲好中国故事呢，就是这样，不是说比如这个中国的优秀的传统文化，我们要把它传承下去，要把它传播出去，但是由于现在的这个时代的变化和这个其他国家的这种观众的需求，我们是提倡它要把握住它的精髓，然后适当的引入现在的一些这种表现的方法呀、传播的手段，要和这个现在时代的特点来结合起来，这样再进行对外的传播，所以我们讲的是叫具有中国特色，能够反映中国精神，还有蕴藏中国智慧，把这样的一些这个 优秀作品来向外传播。所以不管它的这个是语言风格呀，还是这种表现方式的如何变化，它所反映的这种核心的精神，所谓的中国的精神、中国的特色，这个是不会变的。谢谢。
Penny, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, it sent me into a lot of thoughts because we've always thought that the stories we want to tell in animation are very international in their origins. Disney told fairy tales from around the world, from Russia, from France, from Germany. There was never just an American story to tell. The roots are from our global stories that people share and people pass along. And that's what we still look for, the global stories to tell. And for us, having suddenly gotten introduced to a whole new culture, we're fascinated by the differences. The underlying stories are the same, but the touches that we can add by, for instance, putting our first movie set in a China countryside. Now, the movie was developed very neutrally. It wasn't set anywhere. But once we put it in the Chinese countryside, we suddenly got a whole range of different tones and textures that we could incorporate into it. So I think you're absolutely right. The basic stories are strong, and then you embellish them in ways that are only limited by your own creativity, because it's only the lack of imagination that keeps these things from flowering.
Ma, did you want to add
I
something?
just want to participate in all of this. These are the stories that we want to participate in building and creating. And from a technology perspective, I think that we're all working now in a world where, as we know, anything is possible. And I think that is what makes this such an exciting opportunity. And it's a pleasure to hear you talk about the pride and passion around what needs to be retained, and to use the word embellish and to bring creative and cultural influences from around the world into that storytelling. I think there's something very powerful about that opportunity, which I suspect is why we're all sitting here and excited about the future.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it's, I'm sorry, but maybe it's because it's taken so long to get to this place, to have China, to access to China, that we're so excited. Because we all grew up with China as a very distant neighbor, and now we don't feel that way. And now they're non-stops. We can go non-stop, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.